Okay, take 500. Hello, my name is Annie. I am 21. I live in Suffolk. I am a lash technician and I work at Costa Coffee, and I am going to be talking about an illness I suffer with today called Idiopathic Intracranial Hypertension, or for short IIH. IIH. So is it stands for Idiopathic Intracranial Hypertension. Your brain and your spine is naturally meant to be, is covered in a fluid called CSF, which is cerebral spinal fluid. And that fluid is there to protect the area and the areas between the spine and the brain from injury. It's supposed to nourish those areas and eliminate any waste. So IIH happens when too much of that fluid is basically produced, and too much CSF causes high pressure in your brain, in your head and in your spine. So too much of that CSF fluid causes really high pressure in your head, in your brain, and in that whole area that I was just talking about. And it also causes a lot of pressure on the back of the eyes. So IIH is often paired with something called papilledema, which basically happens when that pressure is pushing on the back of your eyes, and it causes part of the optic nerve to swell, and in turn you then get really nasty symptoms like visual sort of disturbances, loss, impairments, and it's something that is definitely a more serious part of IIH. It has to be watched very closely. It's part of a diagnosis in IIH. Often people will be, their eyes will be looked at, they'll see swelling, they'll get sent to the hospital, and often it will turn out it's IIH. Okay, so why does IIH happen? There is no particular reason as to why it happens. So many people, including myself, have been told that IIH is, the most likely person to get IIH is somebody who is overweight, an overweight female at a childbearing age. I know of young boys and girls, men, women of all different shapes and sizes from different lifestyles who have got it. So, that could be a reason, but it's not the reason. Hormonal contraception is another one, because a lot of people have said that the pill has triggered their IIH. I personally had the implant, and I definitely think that had some sort of link between, my IIH flare-up, amongst some other things. So at this point, there really isn't a lot of knowledge on why it happens. It's a really under-researched illness. So it's quite frustrating because there's nothing to blame. There's no reason to, we don't know why this happens to us, so it's really frustrating. In terms of IIH, I get frustrated because if you was to Google IIH, or, if you were to Google IIH, it would come up with symptoms like headache, tinnitus, bad vision, symptoms similar to a brain tumour. But actually, there are so many more symptoms than that, and I'm going to give you the long, real list of symptoms that I've experienced and other people, obviously with IIH, have experienced too. I'm on some brilliant support groups on Facebook, and literally, when I was just having a little think about what I was going to talk about in this video, I just thought I'll have a little scroll and see, what other people have sad and stuff like that, and 5 minutes of scrolling and I've come up with a huge list of just so many symptoms that we all have to suffer with literally every day, and it's just horrible. It is absolutely horrible. So I'm going to tell you that lovely list of of symptoms. So the first is obviously a headache. A severe headache. I personally suffer with the headache on my right side, so it's always sort of around this area, and I get eye pain with it, and then I just feel it here, and it's, you know, people can get it all over their head, their left side, at the back of their head. The headache can be anywhere, but a lot of people suffer with it from just on one side. And it's people describe it as all sorts of different headaches. Personally, for me, I could describe it as like, I feel like somebody is just stabbing me with a knife repeatedly in the head. They're literally stabbing the knife in and just twisting it into my head. And I know that sounds really awful, but that is how my headache feels. Like, it just is just this crippling pain of just feels like dagger, and then like this awful twist of sharpness in my head, and it absolutely kills. And then it feels like that pain then reaches my eye, and it's really painful. And I think a lot of people get that, and some people just get the feeling of, you know, pure pressure on their head. They feel like their head's just going to explode because so much pressure is pushing up into their brain and on, you know, onto their head. And I always kind of think of it like, imagine your worst migraine that you've ever had, or if you've been unlucky enough to have a migraine, and it's that all day, every day. You go to sleep with it, you wake up with it, you get woken up in the night with it. That is the headache. So neck pain is my next one. I feel like neck pain is like looked over quite a lot. Like, I said to my doctors that I really suffered with neck pain, and they kind of then started getting worried that I had meningitis or whatever, but it's actually quite a common symptom in IIH. And it just literally feels like just such a sore neck, you know, turning that way, bending down. It just hurts, it's tight, you feel like you can't do it. Like, the majority of the time, if someone talks to me and they're, you know, faced away from me, I have to be like this to actually talk to them, because my neck just hurts so much. And sleeping with that neck and laying down with that neck is just a nightmare. So yeah, that brings me on to like sleeping issues. So sorry if I'm wrong about this. I think I'm right, but sorry if I'm wrong. When you're sleeping, laying flat, the fluid can like accumulate into one area a lot easier. So I often find that like laying flat, or, you know, just laying like a normal person when you go to sleep, on your side or laying flat or anything, is just so impossible. And I wake up in the night in pain. I often, because at the minute, because I'm suffering with IIH right now, so at the minute I'm finding I'm so tired all the time, so I'll go to sleep at like 9 o'clock. At first I was waking up at like 3 o'clock in crippling pain, and now I'm on some medication, so that 3 o'clock's turned into 6 o'clock instead. But I wake up at some point just in so much pain, because that fluid has sort of swum up to my head and my neck, and it is just there, and it kills. And I just literally grab the first paracetamol, or, well, I take Anadin Extra, which, if anyone is in the UK, I would highly recommend Anadin Extra, because it just helps me. It's such a quick like fix for me, so I definitely recommend Anadin Extra. And then I just have a good guzzle of water and just try and go back to sleep. But most people, they need, you know, pillows upon pillows to actually have to sleep upright, and it's so like just miserable. Like, you can't, sleeping, you're meant to heal and relax whilst you're sleeping, and with IIH it is just impossible. So I would definitely recommend to anybody who is suffering to sleep, you know, a bit more upright. I know it's not comfortable, but it does help. And I also have a little bunny hot water bottle and a little bear like wheat bag, and every night religiously they will get heated up, and they're on my neck, on my head, and they just really do help. I don't know what it is, but it makes everything feel so much better. So definitely get yourself something like that if you struggle at night, or just struggle generally. And then dizziness is another one, because it just makes your whole body feel so weird, and then the medication they put you on doesn't help at all either. That can really sort of make things funny in your whole system. Nausea and sickness is a huge one. So many people feel nauseous with IIH. They're actually sick. Some people just can't hold food down. That is when you're really, really poorly, and you must go to the doctors as soon as you can. Go to A&E, because that is when you know you're really, really not well, if you're being sick. I had IIH when I was 11, so that was in 2011, and I suffered with sickness really, really bad. And then I've just been diagnosed with it again, literally 10 years later, about 2 weeks ago, and I've never suffered from the sickness. So it's strange, but sickness is a huge one, and it's really, really horrible. And again, medication for IIH can make people feel really sick. Tinnitus and pulsate tinnitus is a huge one as well. It's like, I'm sure anyone who has IIH and is watching this, you know the sound, but it's literally like the worst noise in the world, constantly going around in your ears, and it's often with the pulse of like your heart, and it's like in my ears it's like that's what I hear. I know that sounds so stupid, but that is what I hear, and it drives me insane. It's a constant reminder that I don't, like, something's wrong with me and that I don't feel very well. And I literally, like, I have my fan on 24/7 because I try and get it to block out the noise. I remember when I was little and I had IIH, I used to actually stick, like, on the way to the hospital and stuff like that, I would actually stick my head out of the car window so the noise of the wind would mask that tinnitus noise, because it is just so horrible, and it just makes you so angry because it doesn't go away. Sorry, I did tell you this would be a really long list. But so now I'm at the papilledema and vision disturbances / vision loss. This was by far the worst symptom for me, and it always will be. It was horrible when I was young, and it's equally as horrible, if not actually more horrible, now I'm older. Like, the pain that you get with IIH is awful and crippling, but actually, like, losing your vision, the two things you see everything out of every single day from the minute you wake up to start deteriorating, is absolutely petrifying, and I just find it so scary. So most people will start noticing that their peripheral vision is getting worse. So from, you know what peripheral vision is, and you'll often have like a peripheral vision test where the doctor will be like this and everything, and I probably am going to look so stupid, but when I started noticing it, I'd literally just be like, hang on a minute, everything is so blurry out of the corner of my eyes, like, what's going on? And I suffered with the peripheral side of it worst of all, but there are people who actually, like, get blackouts from this. Like, I've heard people on the support groups who have had like 10-second blackouts, they have blind spots, and it's honestly awful. And that is because of, most likely because of papilledema or the pressure that is being put on your optic nerve. But for me, things just looked like blurry, like it first started off my peripheral vision, and then things just like ahead of me started to look blurry, wonky. It kind of seemed like one eye was more zoomed in than the other, so things looked out of like square, if you know what I mean. Things just didn't look right. I'd get like sparkles of colour come over my eyes. Straight lines are like, I'm still experiencing all of this at the minute, and like sitting in front of my camera, I can see myself, but I don't look, my head kind of looks really wobbly because that's just how my vision is at the moment. But yeah, straight lines have like a dip in it, and my eyes just feel like they're working just 10 times harder than usual. I always have my sunglasses on the top of my head. The only reason I don't right now is because I don't want to look stupid. But I literally always have my sunglasses on my head because my eyes are sensitive to light. So, you know, all of these things are really like debilitating, like, if that's the right word. Like, light makes things hard, and light is everywhere. So with that, you get like eye pain, and you get eye pain with the headaches and just eye pain generally. Sometimes I feel like I've literally just been punched in the eyes over and over and over and over again, and then I mean, I've never even been punched before, but it just feels like I've been punched and then my eyes are really, really sore and bruised from being hurt. I know that sounds such a weird description, and it feels kind of like someone's just grabbed my eyeballs and they're just twisting them like that over and over and over again. And sometimes I just feel like that just in like from the shoulders up. Sometimes it just feels like my head isn't meant to be on my body because it's like really, really sore and painful, and I feel like I've been beaten up and I'm just in pain. You know, I could have made this whole list a lot shorter by saying it's just all really painful and horrible. But yeah, so this is me every single day when I'm dealing with IIH. I just don't think I look with it. I think my eyes look really just off and not right. I have my sunglasses on the top of my head all the time because I never know when something is going to be just too bright and I'm going to have to go like that. Like, I'm sitting in front of a light right now, like a little ring light, and it's just so bright on my eyes, but I want the video to look at least a little bit good, so I'm gonna have to bear with. But literally most of the day I just sit in a dark room with my sunglasses on my head because even opening the curtain is just too much. And this is what I look like. Don't be fooled by the makeup in the video. That is just how it is. And then you can get tiredness, depression and anxiety. Like, this whole thing just takes out of you mentally as well as physically. Bloodshot eyes from the pressure, sore skin around the eyes, and I've personally found that just to touch I'm sore. Like, someone will touch me or accidentally sort of touch me a little bit harder than usual and it'll hurt when it's not meant to hurt. Bad memory. So many people have said that their memory is just like worse. Earache, jaw ache, toothache, like there's so much stuff, and that is just literally some of the symptoms. But I am finished with my list, you'll be happy to know. So yeah, next obviously would be, how are we diagnosed with this? So in my case, and obviously for a lot of people I've noticed, you get the symptoms, you go to the doctors or whatever, and sometimes they have a look in the back of your eye, or they say if you have the history. So for instance with me, I already had that IIH history this time, so they just said go straight to the accident and emergency. Last time they checked my eyes, saw papilledema or swollen discs, because I don't think the doctor was quite sure what was happening, and sent me to A&E. So then I went to A&E, you know, had the general bloods taken, got put on a ward, and then the first thing they did was an MRI scan. A lot of people have either an MRI scan or a CT scan, or they have both. Last time I had both, this time I just had an MRI, and that is done to check for the nasties, make sure that nothing else is causing that problem, and also I think you can pick up on fluid in the scan. So mine obviously came back clear with that, so that was obviously really great, because just sometimes, even like for me, I knew it was most likely IIH, because I've had it before and the symptoms were so similar, but having a check for, like, just to check to, well, you know, we're just going to make sure that there's nothing bad there, or it's like, it's so petrifying, it's awful. And then you have your eyes checked, so you often go to the ophthalmology unit, and an eye doctor will look into the back of your eyes and do some tests. Some people have photos of the back of their eyes taken. Sometimes you have to have those drops put in where they dilate your pupils and everything that's really blurry, to be able to really get in there and have a look. And then they tell you, you know, what it's looking like there. I was told I didn't have papilledema this time. I've only been out of hospital for about 2 weeks, nearly 2 weeks, so I'm still due an ophthalmology appointment, and I really wouldn't be surprised if they told me that I do have papilledema, just because I have so many eye issues, and I got my eyes checked very early on, so we'll see. And then after that, you'd then have eye checks. You'd go probably to the you know, this is talking in like the UK. You'd go to the ophthalmology unit, and they would check your eyes, check the back of your eyes. Sometimes they'd put them horrible drops in where it makes everything look blurry, and it dilates your pupils so they can properly see the back of your eyes. Sometimes they take photos, and that just determines whether the discs at the back of your eye are swollen, your optic nerve, and just the health of your eye, because obviously all that pressure is very strenuous on the eyes. So if you do have papilledema, that's obviously another indication towards IIH, and if you don't, like I was told I didn't this time, then you just carry on forward. So I was told, obviously because of my history of having IIH and everything like that, and there was no fluid seen on the brain or anything like that, because sometimes MRIs, I think I just said that, sometimes MRIs can obviously pick up on the fluid. A lumbar puncture is usually formed, so once every other check's been done and they think, you know, IIH is looking quite likely, they'll do a procedure called a lumbar puncture. So that would be like a diagnostic one where they would test your opening pressure. Opening pressure is usually, I think, don't quote me, around like 15 mil or whatever it is, around 15, and both times for my lumbar punctures, mine's been 49, which is way too high. So what they do is then reduce that pressure by doing a therapeutic lumbar puncture. So I will just explain like what a lumbar puncture is and stuff like that. But if you obviously are at high pressure, they'll do the therapeutic lumbar puncture, and that is how you'll get your diagnosis. Some of the fluid will be put in the fluid gets put into little test tubes. Those test tubes then get sent away, and they're just checked for general things, often just checking like meningitis and anything like that, just because they have to be safe. And luckily, like for me, things have always come back normal, and they've been completely happy that it's just IIH. Not that that's a great thing to have either, but you know. So a lumbar puncture can be done for like various different reasons. You can have it done for like diagnostic tests, for other stuff not IIH related. You can have medicines injected through it. You can do epidurals, etc, etc. For IIH, it is to test to see if your CSF, which is the cerebral spinal fluid, level is high. It should be around 15 mil. For both of my tests, it has been 49, which is way too high. Anything I think above like 15 really, or like 18, 20 is too high. So they then do a therapeutic lumbar puncture to drain that fluid away, and then it leaves you back with that normal pressure. And then sometimes lumbar punctures for IIH are also done in emergencies if your like vision is at stake, and then that will give you the immediate relief, because lumbar punctures aren't like a permanent fix. Sadly, for IIH, it's usually sort of a lumbar puncture paired with a medication, or something like that. But so what it is immediate relief, and it will take that stress away from your eyes. So sometimes it is done in like a, you know, emergency scenario. So the way it's done is you'll be laid on your side, and you'll be asked to like go into the fetal position, so like bent over like a little baby on your side. I can believe this because when I was 11, I had a lumbar puncture in like a fancy room. I had gas and air. I had lots and lots of nurses around me. My dad, obviously I had all of this done this time with Corona, so I was completely alone in the hospital the whole time, which was horrible. But like my dad was in the room, and I remember it being quite a big deal like back then. But this time I literally was in my ward, and a doctor came up and she was like, oh, we're now going to do your lumbar puncture if that's okay. I'm just going to have a little discussion with you about everything. Shut my curtain. She had all of the kit with her, and she did it on the ward. So obviously I really wasn't expecting that because of the last time I had it done. So I was really surprised, but it's quite, you know, it's not a major procedure. The area. And obviously clean it beforehand. That is like the worst part because it feels like a nasty bee sting. That's how she described it to me, and it actually was like that. So that is probably the worst part, for obviously most people. And then they'll wait till it's numb, and then the doctor will start sort of giving you a little poke and prod around to try and find the right area to put the needle. They'll then insert the needle, which isn't the nicest feeling in the world. You feel pressure. If they've numbed it properly, you should only feel pressure. And they'll then test that opening pressure. So like mine came shooting out of the spout, so they then had to stop it and then put another tube on. But what it'll do is it'll rise up, and then it'll like come to a diagnostic measurement, and then they will decide whether they want to drain it or not. And then once it's done, they'll tell you that you need to lay flat for a good hour. So obviously that sounds pretty straightforward. I don't want to like scare anyone, because obviously some people watching the video, they might be having a lumbar puncture soon, or you may have just had one, or you know. So I don't want to scare anyone, but sometimes they don't always go perfectly. And there are some complications that I want to talk about, because I feel like I just wish I knew about them before having them, because it's just nice to be aware of these things. And there's really little information I find about lumbar punctures. They just sound like a very, very straightforward procedure. So one of the things is sometimes the area isn't well and numbed enough, so the doctor doesn't numb it well enough, and then you'll feel that needle go through, and it will really, really hurt. And if you feel pain, you have to tell them. You should never, ever, ever go through a lumbar puncture in pain, because they can put more local anaesthetic on there. You just need to ask, and you don't want it to put you, you may have to have another lumbar puncture at another time, and you don't want to have a really, really bad experience and have it put you off them completely. For me, I had she described it as a really awkward bone anatomy. So she just could not get the needle in between the bones into, like, I think it's like the spinal cord or whatever. And she actually ended up trying about 20 times. I was so desperate at that point to have the lumbar puncture done that I didn't want her to give up. And she said to me, I think I'm gonna, she tried and tried and tried. They have to lay you on your side to get that diagnostic pressure. Some people have a lumbar puncture done upright, but you can't get that pressure, that opening pressure, sort of accurately. So she was really trying hard to get me to have it done laid down. And she just kept trying and trying, and sometimes it would hit a nerve and my leg would go shooting up, and I really wasn't in pain. She numbed it amazingly. Like, she was a really, really good doctor. She actually had her own lumbar puncture clinic at one point, so I felt like I was in really safe hands. But she just struggled, for somebody who had a lumbar puncture clinic to be time after time after time trying and trying again to get that needle in. I just thought, oh my god. So she said to me, I'm really, really sorry, Annie, but I think I'm gonna try a few more times, and if I can't get it in, I'm gonna have to give up. And I was just so upset, because I knew that obviously I'd, one, be diagnosed then if I had it done, and two, I would get a even if it was for a short amount of time, I'd get that, relief from it. So I was just so upset, and she'd already half diagnosed me anyway, and then a little blood clot occurred because of how many times she'd punctured me, and it was just awful. So the anatomy was terrible in my back, and then she said to me, what I might have to do is book you in to have it done under like x-ray or ultrasound, I think. So they're guided in so they can see through like the x-ray or ultrasound. So that is always, I said to her, well, will that even work then? And she said, yeah, it's like always successful, because they can actually see where they're going. In the end, she managed to get the opening pressure, and then she sat me up and we had to do it again. So I did have not a very nice lumbar puncture experience on my second round. It wasn't painful at all, and I actually got away with it very lightly afterwards. My back hasn't actually hurt a lot. And she said to me, I'm really sorry, but I really think your back is going to be very sore. And it actually really wasn't sore, so I was very lucky like that. And I obviously explained to you about the nerves being hit, which isn't very nice. And yeah, so sometimes the doctor does have to give up, and that is just, I would have been so devastated if she had given up, because I hyped myself up for it. Obviously nobody wants to have it done, it's not a very nice thing to do, but you know that it's going to be helpful in some way, and to then have a needle stabbed in you like 20 times for someone to turn around and say, sorry, we can't do it, it's just really, really upsetting. So that can happen. They can prep you to have it all done, and then the bone anatomy doesn't work and they have to call it quits. So that is really upsetting. After the lumbar puncture, you'll be told to lay down for an hour, and then a lot of people are told that they can go home straight away. So once that hour's up, they can go home and rest. I had to stay in for the whole night, and some people do as well. You would have spoke to your doctor before your lumbar puncture anyway, and she would have just gone through what will happen, and what might happen afterwards and stuff like that. And I was told that I'd have like probably a headache and a sore back. So after my lumbar puncture, I had like immediate relief. I could see clearer, I felt better, everything just felt amazing. I remember like FaceTiming my parents and my boyfriend and just being like, oh my god, like I'm cured, I just feel so much better or whatever. And then 2 hours later, I just had the worst headache, worse than my IIH headache that I've ever had, ever. I had the whooshing in my ears. At this point, I hadn't even suffered from the whooshing in my ears that badly anyway. So the whooshing in my ears came back. My vision was awful. And my head just killed. There was no pain, like I was in agony. I did not know what to do with myself. So I had my lumbar puncture at like 8 p.m. So it's probably like 10 o'clock now. And I said, can I have some painkillers to the nurse? And she said, and I was absolutely hysterical. I was in so much pain. So doing my little buzzer, and I said to the nurse, like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm in so much pain. Is this normal? And I was really, really crying. And she said, you've only been prescribed paracetamol, so that's all you can have. And you need to stop crying because it's not going to help. And I was like, what do I do? Like, that's not going to help either. And I just cried. I just cried all night. I was in so much pain. And like, obviously you have to tolerate a lot of pain from being in pain. Hang on, you have to tolerate a lot of pain from IIH anyway. So if I couldn't tolerate that pain, and I was honestly petrified, I just did not know what was wrong with me, and I couldn't think straight. And in the end, it got to about 3 a.m. and I said to the nurse, can you please bleep the doctor, because I just don't know what to do. I don't feel safe in how I feel. So the nurse was then like, yeah, we'll bleep the doctor, like that's fine. And then I thought, oh, like thank God paracetamol hadn't like done anything. And then it's like 1 hour later, okay, the doctor's not here. 2 hours later, the doctor's not here. 3 hours later, it gets like 5 a.m. and I'm like, where's the doctor? I'm still in agony. And they're like, sorry, the doctor can't come and see you now. You're going to have to wait until the morning doctor comes along, but we'll give you some morphine. So took the morphine. And then this was all after they'd like spoken to that night doctor, so they have to get permission all the time to give you medication. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting on 2 like measly paracetamol. And he then told them that I could have some morphine. So I finally fell asleep, and then I woke up in the morning and I felt a little bit better, but I didn't feel amazing. And then it got to like 11 o'clock and the doctor finally turned up. So I waited from 3 a.m. till 11 to see a doctor. So then it got to like 10 o'clock, half 10. And the doctor came along and he was like, oh, you're looking perky or whatever. And I was like, because I at this point, I'd been in hospital for 6 nights, I think, or 6 days. And I just wanted to go home. Obviously, with coronavirus, no one could come and see me. I literally went to A&E, got chucked in, and didn't see anyone for, obviously, about a week. So I'm a bit of a wimp, so that was really, really hard for me. And the doctor was like, oh, you're looking quite well. And I was like, yeah, I did have a really, really bad night though last night. And then they said to me that, you know, see how they prescribed me a medication, and then they said, see how you are tonight, and if you're okay tonight, then you can go home tomorrow. So then the next day comes along, he comes around again, and I'm like, yeah, I'm okay, even though all day I'd had this horrible headache. It wasn't as bad as that night. That night was 100% the worst headache. I don't even know if I could class it as a headache because it was so painful. It was the most awful thing ever. But, you know, my vision was just bad. Everything was just not good. And I was in a lot of pain. But I really, I'm a very anxious person, and being in the hospital was not doing me any favours. When, like, for me, the more anxious I get, the worse my vision gets generally. I am that sort of person where I'll get anxious and my vision will sort of go a bit tunnel vision-y. So it was hard to read between the lines of what's anxiety here and what's IIH, or, you know, symptoms from a lumbar puncture. So anyway, I then waited for the whole day to get my medication. I waited from 10 AM till 6:30 just to get some medication. They then offered me a wheelchair to go down, which I really wanted because I just felt awful. And she said to me, oh, well, if I'll get you a wheelchair, Annie, I'll get you a wheelchair. So I was like, oh, okay, thank you. She came back and she said, we can't have the wheelchair for another half an hour because it's dinner time, so we need to have everyone on, like, cover or whatever for dinner time. And I was like, honestly, I'll walk, it's absolutely fine. Like, my boyfriend was waiting for me. I really wanted to just go. So she was like, oh, you can't do that, you can't do that. I said, please, can you just let me, please? I've waited since 10 AM this morning. It's now nearly 7 o'clock. Please, can you just let me, like, walk downstairs on my own? So she's like, okay. So I pick up all my bags and I stumble, like, out of the ward, across the corridor. I can barely see anything. And I just stumble down the stairs, and then, like, my boyfriend's waiting at the entrance, and we have this dramatic hug or whatever. But honestly, going home for me was the best thing I could have done, because I could just calm down then and sort of, like, regroup with myself. I was getting myself into a anxious mess in hospital, so I needed to go home. It probably sounds, you probably think, well, why the hell did you go home, like, in that state? But that was what I needed to do. The doctor was happy with me to go home. I had a medication, I'd had my lumbar puncture. There wasn't anything else they could do for me. So obviously went home, and then slept, cried, and then I obviously felt a little bit better the next day. And I did some research, and what I found out was that pain I was experiencing, probably some of you already know this if you've had IIH or a lumbar puncture, was a low pressure headache. So a low pressure headache comes after you had the fluid removed, and I think it's because obviously you have such high pressure and then it's reduced, and then everything, it's all gone. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's the effect of not having as much pressure anymore causing a headache. So I was told I'd get a headache, but I wasn't told it was going to be as brutal as it was. And no one is told that, and some people get so worried and they think, like, what the hell's wrong with me? But actually it is a common side effect of having a lumbar puncture. So it's horrible, but it's more normal than you think. And then I learned, like, a load of different things that you can do to, like, combat the horrible, like, aftermath of it. I learned these on my support groups, and a few things from just, like, Googling it or whatever. So obviously you're told to lay completely flat straight after you've had the lumbar puncture, but also when you have that low pressure headache, laying completely flat is the best relief you can get. And that is how you will know if it's low pressure, because once you're laid flat, that pain should ease. So laying flat, drinking loads and loads of water. This has been my best friend the whole time. This is constantly full. I honestly drink so much water, and I think you actually replace a lot of water by drinking, because what's going on with IIH takes up a lot, but I'm not really sure about that, so don't quote me. But all I know is that drinking water is really, really good for you in this point, and I could actually feel my headache feel better once I'd had a good old glug of water. Caffeinated drinks is another one, so drinking things like Coke, tea, even like full fat, like sugary Coke, tea, coffee, but little and often, because it helps raise your pressure, but what you don't want is to obviously really raise your pressure too high again. And then I've also had that people start on the caffeinated drinks before their lumbar puncture as well, and they've had that's really helped them, if you know what I mean. So people have tons and tons of different things that they do to help them: ice packs, heat packs, hot water bottles, everything. Like, there's so much you can do to help, but it is a really, really obviously horrible thing to have. Rest. So many people on the support group will be like, oh, I'm having a lumbar puncture tomorrow, is one day off work long enough? And I'm just like, no. Some people must get away with it, but like, if you do look on Google, or if you talk to your doctor, they'll be like, oh, you should be sort of feeling better after about 24 hours. But I don't know anyone that has gotten away with just like springing straight back up from a lumbar puncture after 24 hours. I personally don't know anyone. It took me a solid 10 days to get better. And I think that's quite a common thing actually to happen. I don't think that's like rare. A lot of people take a while to start feeling better. And then obviously just look after yourself, take everything slow. Your body has been through so much more than what it sounds like it has, if you know what I mean. Sometimes I think, well, why do I feel so ill? Because all I've had done is a lumbar puncture. But actually, that's still a lot for your body to go through. So that's just like a few little things I just felt was important to say, because it's not spoken about a lot. And like, I know this is bad, but like, my initial thing to do is go onto Google and see what Google says about how I feel, which is never a good idea. But Google really doesn't have a lot to say about like lumbar punctures or anything, so hopefully that's helped someone. But obviously, with saying all of that, lumbar punctures, so many lumbar punctures do go successfully. Tons and tons of people are okay after. They don't feel great, but you know, they had it done, it's fine. People's bone anatomy is great for lumbar punctures. I've heard that a lot of people have had more successful ones than bad ones, so don't let it put you off because I said that, because even though I haven't had the best experience in the world with it, I would 100% have another one if I needed to, because they do help you. They're there for a reason. And then also, I just wanted to say that obviously a lot of those like tips and tricks I've got from everything have been from these support groups that I'm on Facebook, and I'm going to link them in like the little description below, because they have honestly, that has just been such a huge part in this for me. I write in there quite a lot actually, and somebody is always there to help. Someone is always there who relates to you, and honestly, like, I've been helped more by anyone in that group than any of my doctors or my neurologist or anyone. Like, they just, nobody, you know, can help you quite like someone who knows what you're going through. So I'm definitely going to link them in the description below, because they are just so helpful, and I really think anyone suffering should go on there. Some people are a little bit blunt about things sometimes, so you kind of have to take everything written with a pinch of salt. You know, I've said before, like, I'm going in for a lumbar puncture or something, and then someone's been like, lumbar punctures don't work, you're going to have a shunt. But that's not always the case. So just don't take, you know, everything too seriously. Nobody wants to have a shunt. I haven't obviously spoken about a shunt, but that is an alternative to help IIH, which I'll speak about in a moment. But yeah, don't let the support group be your life. Don't listen to everything everyone says, because your story is your story. What's happening to you is what's happening to you, and it doesn't mean that what happened to her is going to happen to you. That was really badly explained, but you know what I mean. So I just wanted to obviously say that as well, because I think when I first started, you know, having a look and stuff, I just picked up everyone else's problems, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to have a shunt. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna go blind in this eye. Oh my god, this is gonna happen to me. But actually these things haven't happened, and I've just had to accept that I'm not very well with IIH, but go on with my own path of it. So yeah, just to round the video off, obviously I'm just going to explain like what would happen next. So you've been diagnosed, you've had your lumbar puncture, you're probably home now or whatever, and at this point your doctor's either sent you home with a medication, or you've been prescribed a medication, and that medication should probably have the purpose of trying to keep that CSF fluid down after your lumbar puncture. Common medications used are acetazolamide, topiramate, and I think there's one called furosemide. I don't know how to say it, but because I've never experienced that one, but I'm not even gonna try. But yeah, and then I was put on topiramate. I didn't agree with that, so I got put onto acetazolamide, and I'm getting on with that really well. You'll also probably be told that weight loss is going to help you. Whether it actually helps or not, I'm not sure. Some people have said that, you know, they've lost weight, it was the best thing they've ever done, and they've gone into remission. And then other people have said that they've tried to lose weight and they have, and they've not changed. I'm personally trying to lose weight because I embarrassingly gained about 3 stone in probably 10 months. Which is obviously a really short space of time. I obviously, like, I got a new, not a new boyfriend, but I got a boyfriend, and then, like, you know, you get comfortable with them and you eat a little bit more, and then coronavirus happened and you can't, you know, I slacked and I started eating just a lot worse, and I gained a lot of weight. I don't get away with it like some people do. And I had the implant as well, which I've now had removed, because, you know, so many people have said hormonal contraceptions have played a part in it, so I just thought, well, I'll have mine removed. I'll be careful, obviously, but it's just one other thing that might help me. So yeah, weight loss is something that I feel is important for me, just because I did rapidly gain that weight, so it could easily have something to do with why IIH has happened for me. Obviously, like I said, shunts are an option, but it's like last resort. Shunts are, I think a lot of us hear the word shunt and we're like, no, I can't deal with that, that's way too scary. But I think it really does help a lot of people. I've seen so many people say that a shunt has just, you know, that's one operation. I think you have to have like shunt revisions and stuff, which isn't the best, but it's one operation to, you know, help you get your life back. So ultimately, if it did resort to that for any of us, we'd be grateful we had it done in the long run anyway. But that is last resort. It's more if your eyesight is, you know, at danger, or nothing helps you, nothing is working, no medication or anything like that. But I am a little bit out of my depth when it comes to that, so obviously I'm probably not going to talk about that too much. But yeah, so I think I have covered everything. I'm so sorry this video has been like the longest thing in the world, but I just think it's really important to actually talk about this in depth, because when I've been really suffering, you know, I had IIH 11 years ago, so I could hardly remember that when I got it again this time. I tried to like scratch my brain to relate to 11-year-old me, but I obviously really struggled. So you do like go to YouTube and these support groups and stuff just to see if anyone else feels the same as you or whatever. And I think that there's just not enough research anywhere, and it's not spoken about enough. Some doctors don't even know that, you know, what IIH is, what it stands for. So yeah, I hope that obviously this really rambly video has helped someone. Whether you're new to IIH and you need to learn about it, or you have it and it's just nice to hear someone speak about it. And obviously it'd be great if there's someone who's watching this who doesn't even have IIH and is just learning about it. Like, I would love that, because I think that it should be more well known. But yeah, I think that is the end of the video. And I think I've literally covered absolutely everything I possibly could have. But thank you so much for watching. I hope this has helped somebody. And I hope that you've learned something from it as well. I will be posting another video in a few days of just like my story of IIH. I know I spoke about it a little bit just now, but I'm going to sort of go into a more in-depth story about what's happened for me the 2 times I've had it, because they've been 2 very different times. Obviously last time I was 11, this time I'm now 21. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon. Bye.